Hi, I'm Laura Hahn Segundo Collins,
And I'm Joy Han Silva Malora.
and welcome to Hahnacity.
Good morning.
Good morning and good afternoon here on the East Coast.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's morning for us. I woke up like 30 minutes ago.
You know what? You make waking up at 30 minutes ago look really pretty great.
I mean, thankfully,
Gorgeous.
I have coffee. That's all I needed.
True that. Fun fact for anyone who's listening, as it turned out, Joy and I on two different coasts went apple picking, which is kind of
Yesterday,
cute. Yesterday.
we
Where
shared
did you
a
go?
plane.
We did.
We went to this place called Oak Glen. That's outside of Big Bear.
Oh,
But
nice.
the reason why we did that was because today is officially my 1 year anniversary with my husband. We got married today.
Oh,
So,
happy anniversary, everyone.
yeah,
Because
everyone
you
shares
should be
my
doing your own
anniversary.
thing right now, and instead you're with us.
No, because you
Happy
know what? We
anniversary,
have
Marvin
guests.
and Joy.
Thank you. But we have guests that we love dearly, and
That's
so
true.
I am here, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, we went apple picking outside of Big Bear and ate amazing barbecue and had apple pie and
Mm.
all the greatness that comes with apple picking. And I'm gonna make an apple cake, I think, with all our apples. And then, oh, we
Oh,
also got
nice.
amazing cider. We brought home so much stuff, honey, all the
That's a good
goodies.
idea.
I went a little crazy.
Local honey is also very good for your immune system, for your allergies.
Well, there you go. I should
There you
make
go.
some tea with like honey and ginger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
What about you? Where did you go?
We went to a place called Apple Dave's Orchard up in Warwick, New York. And it was about a couple hours away, which in a way is good because then you get away from the crowds, the city
Yeah.
crowds. And it was lovely. So, same, we had apple cider donuts, and I had a pumpkin apple cider, like alcoholic beverage, which was really good. And we picked a bunch of Honeycrisp, and Yellow Delicious was not even usually on my kids' radar, but it was absolutely delicious according to them. Most of all, it's just being out and about and picking stuff. The kids were
Yeah.
like, kind of not kicking and screaming, but Saturday morning they want to play video games and go
Sure.
outside that way. But we've been trying to get out of the apartment and do things
Yeah.
together as a family. And we got up there and they had a blast.
Uh,
We had so much fun. The kids were like, "This is great. We should do this every year." It was just really cool. It was really cool.
well,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Wow.
I'm really excited to talk to the group of women that we're going to have this opportunity to chat with because we met them 2 years ago after we
Mhm.
launched Hahnacity, and they found us on a hashtag. I think it was Gymnast Alliance.
Mhm.
It's just incredible because originally when we decided to start this, we thought it was just be the two of us talking to no one. And it was incredible that through the whole process of sharing our stories, people reached out and wanted to connect with us and tell us their stories. And these women are pretty special to us because they are one of our first connections.
Yeah.
And I have had the opportunity to listen to their stories through the documentary that they did in Canada. You have done some workshops with them with your Beyond the Game workshops, and we have built this just beautiful community with them. And we get to talk to them today, and they are all gymnasts. But gymnasts, there's a special bond that goes through this, especially within that time. There's just so much to hold in that space, and it's really hard to articulate with words. It's just some sort of special heart connection.
Yeah. And Joy is specifically talking about the 80s and 90s gymnasts in
Yes.
particular. We are a particular group of people in this planet that you bring up the time of the generation that we grew up in as gymnasts. And there's just a sejong, it's like in Korean,
Yeah.
like sort of spoken without speaking understanding
Yes. Yeah.
in so many ways. And in many ways, like a trauma bonding, I think, for a lot of us too.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll read their bio. Today on Tenacity, we're joined by three extraordinary women whose courage and leadership are transforming the landscape of sport in Canada and beyond. Amelia Cline is a lawyer and former elite gymnast who became the lead plaintiff in a landmark class action lawsuit against Gymnastics Canada and its provincial associations. Through her advocacy and leadership as managing director of Athletes Empowered, Amelia pushes for systemic accountability and lasting policy reform to ensure sport is safe and abuse-free for the next generation. Abby Spadafora competed for nearly 2 decades, 6 of those years representing Canada, and now serves as the organization's director of engagement. After publicly sharing her story of abuse in sport, Abby has become a fierce voice for survivor empowerment, leading peer support initiatives that help others heal and be heard. Melanie Hunt, a former gymnast and cardiac sonographer, brings her own survivor experience and deep compassion to the movement. Through her work with the Keep Me Safe program, she raises awareness, educates communities, and advocates for every child to be seen as human first, athlete second. Together, these three women embody resilience, integrity, and hope. Their collective mission through Athletes Empowered is clear: to ensure that every young person can participate in sport safely, with dignity, and with the understanding that their worth is not defined by performance, but by who they are. Without further ado, Amelia, Abby, and Melanie.
Hello, lovelies.
Hi.
Oh my
I
God.
love it.
Thank you so much, all of you guys, for coming today, taking time out of your schedule to be with us. We're so honored.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so honored.
We're recording, so we're just going to get down into it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
We met you ladies was through the hashtag Gymnast Alliance. And so the way that we wanted to start today with you ladies was, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was such a breaking down of the isolation that I think had existed between all of us gymnast survivors. Like, we'd all sort of had these experiences, and when you hear them, they're so similar. And, you could line up our stories and take our names out of it, and you wouldn't be able to tell who's who because they're just so consistent and horrifying. And so it was the first time that I'd realized there was the opportunity for us to join together and actually come together as a community and realize that we're not alone.
Yeah, I would say when that all was like coming ahead, Mel and I were still involved in our process. So it was a little bit different. And then when I started diving into it, feels like all these gymnasts coming together that all over the world and had the exact same experiences. And like Amelia said, didn't matter what club you were at, where you were at, it was like looking in the mirror in a sense. And it also validated a lot of what I was trying to process.
Mhm.
So it was pretty incredible. It's still incredible. It's sad, obviously, but it's also all these gymnasts banding together where we were taught, like, don't say anything, stay quiet. And it's the complete opposite now, where it's like these incredible human beings finding the strength to be loud and almost in a sense be everything that we were told not to be. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, it was an aha moment because for me anyways, we knew that other gymnasts were kind of experienced the same things, but we didn't know for sure because nobody was really talking about it. So when it all came out, it was comforting in a sad way that it's like, I knew it, what was happening to me was also happening to you guys. We just couldn't talk about it. So I would say validating and comforting and also strengthening, knowing that there's so many of us and we're all ready to take our power back and use our voices to change it for the next generation coming up.
If we could, just for points of reference for people who are listening right now, can we just all go around really quickly and kind of share the years that we were in gymnastics?
Yeah, so I started when I was about 2, so that would have been about 1991, and then I quit in 2003.
I started when I was 2 as well, so 1985, and then I had to retire due to back injury in 2002. I was about 21.
And I started when I was 4, so that would have been 1991 until I was 19, so 2006.
I started when I was 8, and so that was 1988, and then I retired at 95.
And I started when I was 6, although I was turning 7 the same year in 1984. And I left due to injuries in 1990. So as you can see, you're seeing the generation that we were talking about in the intro as the 80s to 90s gymnasts of a particular time in the world history, I think, of gymnastics as well. The second piece of my question is, because we're all in the same generation, and Joy and I talked about this before even recording the first season of Hahnacity, which was very difficult, realizing that we hadn't even shared the stories with each other. When hashtag Gymnast Alliance came out, how did those conversations start happening between you three, for example?
Yeah, it was interesting because it felt like a lot of things happened all at the same time. So we had the hashtag Gymnast Alliance happening. We had the Athlete A documentary coming out, which for me was a moment. It was happening during the pandemic. So I had a lot of time by myself to sit and start to think about some of my experiences. And then I watched that documentary. And for me, it was a light bulb moment where I realized not only do I recognize some of the people and competed with some of the people in that documentary, they were sharing stories that were so similar to my own. So that ultimately led me to writing a blog that went through my story. And that went a bit viral in the Canadian gymnastics community. And so suddenly I was getting messages, just flooded my inbox with people coming forward saying, this is still happening. I think that was a really awful thing for me to realize, because I thought in the 15 or 20 years since my own experiences, I assumed that the sport had gotten better. And that was very evidently not the case based on the messages I was getting. And so that ultimately led to me being connected with a couple other gymnasts who really wanted to do something about this and start to advocate for changes, because we all sort of realized that this was still a problem. And so we founded Gymnasts for Change Canada at that time. We were pretty underground. We weren't public with who was behind this movement, but it was through that then I got connected to Abby and Mel, and they were also in the middle of their process. So they also had to be quite behind the scenes, but we were all kind of quietly connecting with each other in the background. It was really neat.
Yeah, Mel and I were still in our process. So when the open letter came out, like we wanted to sign it, but unfortunately we were in a process where anything and everything was going to be used against us. And so our advocate at the time had said that we could sign it, we just have to stay anonymous. So I signed the open letter, and then as we were coming to an end with the process, I slowly started to get a little more brave as I reach out to Gymnasts for Change Canada and slowly talk. And then as soon as that was over, it was wonderful. We were be a little bit more open and then have more of those talks. I would say again, yeah, it was still pretty hush hush at the time when even Mel and I came on board with that. But yeah, it's interesting when you're talking about your experiences and what happened to you, and a lot of times you're not really talking about it. So I would say it was a bit different where Mel and I, in a sense, obviously Mel, you can get into it if you want, but like we had the criminal end of it first. So that's where I would say that's the first time where you're actually kind of publicly talking about it to other people. And then we went through the formal complaint system. And so that was actually the first time that my mom had ever really learned anything that had happened, because I was thinking, okay, you learned some of it in the criminal end, but before I send this off to, Gymnastics Canada, maybe I should let my mom read it. And so that was really hard, but the first time that I would say going public with it in a sense, or other people outside of your therapist and this community type thing.
Really quick, and share what's comfortable for you too, is that for people who are listening that might not know, and because it's still going out there, it's still kind of fairly new to be able to use our voice and stand up to aggressors and abusers and any of these folks. But for those who don't know what your story is about, can you just share in a nutshell there's a documentary, folks, 2022, it's called Broken: Inside the Toxic Culture of Canadian Gymnastics, which you could absolutely hear Abby and Melanie's story. Amelia, are you in too?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So, I could not watch it because it's I could not watch Athlete A either. There's pieces of it that someone had told me about it, and I would kind of scroll through very quickly, and I accidentally came upon a video of the ranch in Texas, and I had a PTSD reaction where I kind of absolutely broke down. I was not expecting to see that. So I have not been able to date, watch anything because it's too triggering for me personally, but I know Joy has. Yeah. So for those who are listening, it is an amazing documentary. I know that Joy's watched it. She can tell you about it from that point of view, but for the purpose in general of just this conversation, do you mind sharing just a little bit of what brought you to that court case in Canada?
Yeah. So I still remember the day that I got the phone call from the detective. What happened is a former teammate, at the time, I didn't know who, but came forward on our behalf. It was right at the height of the Me Too movement. And so talking to her after, she said, she had always felt guilty for never saying anything before, even though she was a gymnast and a child at the time. Like, she shouldn't have felt any guilt. But of course, we all do. So she had called the police in Sarnia. And then they called myself, Abby, maybe a few other people, I'm not sure. And so it was left in our hands whether or not we wanted to go in and actually have an interview and tell our story. And I remember, Ab, I think you called me the same day that we got called from the police. And we kind of were just like in shock for one, because we had both intended to just take it to the grave. We kind of, it was something that happened. We were trying to bury it in a sense, get on with our lives. And this just blew everything up. So it took about 2 weeks for me, with support from my family, to realize that this could be happening to other little humans. And if I say something, then it could help save somebody else from going through what I did. I don't know how long it took for you, Ab. I feel like we were close in timeline, but we separately went in. I gathered my thoughts. I did actually have some hard evidence. I had a love letter that my coach had written to me, a Valentine's Day card that he had also given me. And in the back of my mind, like little baby Mel held on to these things. I think just knowing that one day they might come in handy. So, yeah, that spawned the arrest, which then turned into the criminal trial and then turned into the investigation done by Gymnastics Canada.
So Mel and I had gotten a call from the police at the same week, and I remember the police calling, and I was like, "Oh my God, what did I do? Like, I've never had a speeding ticket before." And so the officer was like, "You're not in trouble, but what I'm about to talk to you might be difficult." And I said, "I know what you're gonna say." And he goes, "So you do?" And I said, "Yep." And I said, "What do you want to know?" Because I had expected this phone call back in about 2005, 2006. And I think a
Wow.
lot of people don't maybe know that or realize that. So at the time, I was ready to come forward on behalf of Mel. Like Mel had said, like I'd been to therapy and I thought I was in a really good place. I was dealing with the death of my father. And so it's like, I will do whatever I can to tell the truth about what happened to Mel. I'd given a little bit of evidence as to what happened to me, but it wasn't actually until January. Like, so we had gotten the call in about October, November, went in December to give my evidence for Mel. I don't want to get emotional, but I had to come to terms with the fact that I was never going to be able to tell my dad what had happened to me. And so I wasn't ready to come forward. So worked through that in therapy. And then I went in January. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's what happened or why it happened, but my charges were never brought forward. So there are technically charges there. They were just never brought forward during the time of Mel, which really sucks because when you look at what had happened over the course of the trial and that, it would have been really, really helpful, that evidence, but it turned out the way it was, but it did lead to so many incredible, brave women, young women coming forward. There was 11 of us total in the end doing the sport complaint process. And I was like Mel too, thinking, no, things have gotten better in gymnastics. Like in my mind, I was thinking that. And then thank God we came forward and went through the process, because then we learned that someone had actually been abused 3 weeks prior to his arrest. And so I'm so thankful that we didn't just end with the acquittal where he would have just gone back to coaching, and we all continue to push through. So it was a rough, oh gosh, I can't even remember how many years we were involved in that process. I think 3+ years we were involved in the process from start to finish. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on that a lot of people didn't even realize that Mel and I were going through because we weren't allowed to say anything. So it was interesting. It was tough, but I'm glad we did it.
Had you ladies heard each other's story prior to court, or was it literally just when you were in court did you hear each other's story? Was there ever a conversation, because you guys were teammates, that you guys ever like
We
shared,
actually
this happened to you, this, like there has to be, like some sort of like what in the world happened here? What happened to us,
So Mel and we actually lived together for a year, our last year, because we had moved to Burlington for a couple of years. And my last year of Canadian gymnastics, I actually lived with Mel and the Brewbakers. And I was older, so I had seen a lot of stuff. And I actually think, and Mel, you can jump in, but I actually saw a lot and remembered a lot that Mel at the time didn't even remember, but I realized we were so in survival mode that it was in this weird way easier for me to remember other things that happened to other gymnasts than it did what was happening to me. Because at the time we're both being abused, all forms of abuse. And I remember thinking certain things like that's not right, but not knowing the word abuse and what it meant. But we never really like sat down and said, like, we would joke around maybe when we got older and like sit down and have breakfast together or something. And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but you kind of like laugh because it's so insane when you actually go over what went on in the gym, but never into the full on detail that, not the full detail.
Yeah, we knew, I think like everybody who witnesses in the gym, like the verbal, physical abuse that happens, the psychological manipulation and control aspect. But in terms of the sexual side of things, it wasn't something we openly talked about. So it wasn't until the trial really that we learned, oh my God, that happened to you too. And what's crazy is some of the stuff that happened to Abby, we were at a competition together, staying in the same hotel room, and I was just in a different bed and had no idea. And so learning about it after just makes you feel even sicker knowing that I was there when it was happening. I mean, now we're open about it and talk about stuff, but at the time it was very much still hidden.
And for context, for people who might not know, Abby and Mel's coach was one of the most prominent coaches in Canadian gymnastics at the time. So when I was training, I trained with a different set of coaches on the other side of the country. They were known as the Canadian Corellis, so you can imagine what that experience was like. But just to demonstrate the interconnectedness of all of this, their coach knew that I was being abused by my coaches. And so when I was training, there was a training camp that happened that was hosted at our gym on the other side of the country. Mel and Abby's coach attended and actively tried to recruit me to train with him. And we were so close to moving across the country. My mom was going to come with me. We were going to go, and he presented himself as a safe haven from what he knew I was going through. In hindsight, it became such a sinister thing because I knew that I would have been the next one, right? And so then when I stopped training, my coach ultimately became the Canadian national head coach. He went to the Olympics the year after I quit. But there was a huge uproar because people knew how bad he was. So I was actually contacted a few years after I had stopped and asked to share my story in an effort to try to get him fired as the Canadian national head coach. That was ultimately successful, but the person that they installed in the wake of his firing was Mel and Abby's coach, and he became the national head coach. So it just shows you the generational system of abuse. And at all times, you basically had someone in that position who was a predator and abuser. So that just adds an extra layer of complexity and sort of the shared elements of our various stories as well.
I remember Amelia telling me about that, and it was like I wanted to be shocked, but then I was just like, that makes sense. Like it was just this weird like numbness that I wasn't shocked, even though I should have been when she had told us about that.
It's crazy because when you guys shared your story when we first met, I think I was in a support group that Mel and Abby had led. And I totally was this kid that was coming in and thinking this only happened in America. And then you guys share your stories, and it's a similar thing. And you're telling me about how interwoven this culture is with coaches protecting coaches, athletes are trained to be silent, all these things. It makes me think about like what happened in the 92 Olympics, Laura, where there's a selection for USA Gymnastics. And it was Bella Crowley who was the guy that picked his team. And the girls who made that team were coaches that were connected to him that worked with him. And they wanted a certain look and a certain demographic, age, weight, all these things. And the girls who actually placed higher on the Olympic trials did not make the team because they did not fit a certain body type or had the right coach, and they got cut off the team. And it's coaches protecting coaches, and it's this toxic culture of let's turn a blind eye because it's results based. It's nothing to do with the human, and it's literally what can they do for Team USA. And now you guys are talking about that this is global. This is like not just in one specific area. This is a culture that is starting to seep into all over, right? And it started, Laura always talks about, it starts in the Eastern Bloc countries, and when these coaches come over to these Western countries, and we're all being complicit to this ideology that this is the only way to win. This is insane to me that this story like you say, Abby, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that our coach was the one that got to go and be the leader of this team now. What does Canada gymnastics look like right now? Do you see a shift? Is it getting better? Where are they right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's been some changes over the last few years. So when I first came forward and my blog sort of made its rounds, I was invited to talk to the board and the CEO and to share my story and a few other stories that I received permission to share with them. The whole board was in tears by the end. And I said, look, like this is still happening. This is not historical. This is the reality of your current program. And I told them there were a few things that they could do overnight that might change how things are going. And they were really simple changes. It was like, number one, ban the weighing of gymnasts. There's no reason to do it. Coaches are not nutritionists. There's no reason for a child to be made to step on a scale in a gym, publicly or privately, doesn't matter. Don't do it. Ban it right now. Another was mandate that parents are allowed to watch practices. Again, there's no reason that parents should be shielded from what's going on in the gym. In fact, they should be able to monitor what's going on so that they can raise the alarm. And even just saying that, I could see sort of like this visible, oh, that's radical. And it's, these ideas are not, they should be no brainer, right? Like they should be things that are implemented immediately. They never took that advice. The CEO that was the CEO at the time that I was speaking to them was subsequently let go as a result of a lot of the media pressure that was happening with our advocacy. He had been called to the carpet essentially by our government. So the Canadian government started to do committee investigations into what was going on in sport, and gymnastics was playing a big role in that. So as a result of a lot of that media attention and the documentary and all of those things, he was let go. There was new leadership brought in. And again, I sat down with the new CEO and I said, okay, here are the things. And I gave him the list again. And I said, these are the things that need to happen. Nope, still nothing. I think there has been some advocacy from within. So Abby and Mel and I are quite removed from the sport itself at this point. Some of the current athletes, I think, have tried to do some advocacy from within and tried to change the culture that way. I know there's been some coaching changes, but I think from our perspective, it's a lot of window dressing, right? It's kind of, shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, but not really actually changing much. That would just be my thoughts. But
yeah, there's like Mel and I were allowed to watch the cross-examination during the complaint process. And so we actually got to see who supported the Brewbakers. And so we know that there were board members with Ontario within the gymnastics community, not just in our town. There was judges, coaches, now former gymnasts that testified on their behalf and went against the victim survivors. And so we know that they still have they were still embedded in it. And so I don't think there's been enough change. Like Amelia said, it's window dressing, or it may sound great on paper, but when it comes to the root of it, are they actually making real changes? I don't think they are. Even our abuser who was banned from coaching, it was during the appeal where he was showing up to competitions and coaches and judges are hugging him and welcoming him with open arms. So no, I personally don't think there's enough real changes. I'm hopeful, but that's kind of where I sit with it.
I should also add, so we're now actually on the third CEO since all of this blew up. The third CEO that they brought in, one of the first things when you Google his name is that there's a child abuse scandal that he was involved in tennis. So it's just, and that's a simple Google search. So you just wonder, how much effort are people putting into vetting these people when they hire them? That's pretty basic. And if you know that that person has that history, why are you hiring them in the context, especially of all of this media attention, all of this pressure, all of this knowledge now that you have an abuse crisis in this sport, in basically all sports across Canada, and that's the person that you choose to hire? That's a pretty deliberate choice at this point, in my view. If anything, it's almost becoming more nefarious at this point because there's no plausible deniability anymore. Everybody knows that this is happening in the sport, that we have a problem, that we have this very well-documented history of putting dangerous, problematic people in these positions of leadership. And then you make the choice to hire your next CEO when they have that history. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and there's reason for optimism, but I think it's tough.
That reminds me, Joy, when we have a friend who's a coach, and she said, very, very quietly, like Coaches Club exists and
Did
it
I?
still exists. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what country you're in, they all have their own little caring for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe this is a good segue then to Athletes Empowered and what you're doing now to, it's not just combat. It's, you are doing so many amazing things through athletes. I mean, you are a small but mighty group. So given this origin story of Gymnasts for Change and turned Athletes Empowered, like where are you at now? What's the focus given that the nature and the intensity and the immensity, is that a word? Whatever it should be. Just the magnitude of the problem in general. Where are you at now?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I think we started out, I always say this, we started out very naive. We thought as soon as people understood the problem, of course, they would move heaven and earth to fix it. When we first started Gymnasts for Change, we started with an open letter addressed to Sport Canada asking for an investigation into gymnastics specifically, thinking again that that entity would be motivated to make change. What became very clear over the next few years of advocacy was that it was not that simple. There were a lot of people who are in positions of power, both within the sports system and in government, who very much want the status quo. So it led to us, first of all, realizing too that this was not a gymnastics problem, this was a sport problem. So that's where the evolution from Gymnasts for Change into Athletes Empowered happened, because very quickly we were not just supporting gymnasts. It was people from other sports coming to us saying, this is happening in our sport. How do we fix it? What do we do? So we made the pivot so that we could really, our name could reflect the inclusivity that we were experiencing. It was not gymnasts anymore. It was everybody. That ultimately led to a movement of advocates across sport calling on government to initiate a full-blown national inquiry into sport in Canada. That was pushed through both. There was two parliamentary committees that did studies on sport, and they ultimately concluded that an inquiry should happen. So that led to the government announcing this national commission. So it's not the inquiry that we wanted, but it was a national commission to study sport in Canada, and specifically to study the abuse crisis. So we've just had the preliminary report of that released. So over the last year, we've been working quite closely with our community to connect them with the commission so that work could happen. We were quite pleased to see that the commission said what we all know to be true, but has been so resisted as an admission by the sports system, which is that we have a sport abuse crisis in Canada. All forms of abuse, all levels of sport, grassroots to elite, and particularly a focus on grassroots. And that's a recognition that it starts very early, and it starts at those community levels, and then it permeates all the way through to elite sport. So that's been a lot of the work that we've done over the last year has been around that. But then we've also, coincidental with that, we as an organization started to refocus our efforts, because we were also realizing that if you don't get to the grassroots, you're not really actually making change. So, and I'll have Abby and Mel talk about this a little bit more, but we're really excited because we've started this, we call it the Keep Me Safe program. And it's a partnership between us and the Children's Aid Society in Sarnia. And it's a program designed to come alongside any child athlete, any adult that's going to encounter them, and empowering those adults to identify the signs of abuse, be able to address them with the child in a trauma-informed way, and report them to all the various authorities, but also disrupt that at the community level, right? If you see something, you're saying something, and you know exactly where you need to go in order to do that. So we've kind of shifted our focus a little bit from the big national, federal level media advocacy stuff, which was really important and I think was really helpful to get this into the public consciousness. But we're now shifting into this more community-based grassroots effort to see if we can make change right at the start.
Kick ass. Melanie, Abby, can you tell us a little bit more about Keep Me Safe?
So a year ago in September, we hosted a safety and sport event here at the Lambton College. We had panelists come in from across Canada. Amelia was one of them. Her dad was another, just to shed light on the crisis that's happening in sport here. Dawn Flagel, who's the executive director of Children's Aid Society here in Sarnia, she came and saw us talk, and then she reached out. And so initially, I think she met with Ab, and they talked about co-creating a program to keep kids safe. And so we had actually done a similar campaign maybe about a year prior to that, where we had little kids looking at the camera saying, "Keep me safe," which was the whole point. It was to try and answer the question of why are we doing what we're doing. We really leaned into that. Children's Aid was totally on board. And so we developed it through the summer. We've actually done our first presentation at the beginning of this month, and we have our second one in 3 days from now. We're funded by Jumpstart, which is amazing. They were on board with obviously keeping kids safe in sport. And so we're trying to hit one organization per month for the first year to pilot the program, change things as we go, get feedback from every organization that we hit. And it's not just sports organizations that we're going to. We're doing a nurse practitioner's office. We are doing Rebound, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Like Amelia said, any adult figure, whether it's a teacher, a massage therapist, a chiropractor, who would come in contact with a child athlete along their journey, who might be able to pick up the red flags, signs of abuse that's happening, and then know what to do about it in a trauma-informed way.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the program because it's also, like Mel and Amelia have said, that it's focusing on the adults and taking the onus off the child, because we know that the child's not going to be the one, mostly, to say that they're being hurt or injured. So it's putting the onus back on the adult to protect the children. It's an education, awareness, prevention, and discussion presentation. It's roughly 2 hours long. We have condensed it to an hour for certain places, just if they have like a learn and lunch type thing. We got great feedback from the first one, so really excited for the second one. And like Mel said, we're doing one a month for the first year, and we only have 3 spots left for the remainder of, so I think we only have June, July, and August left. Then we've made another connection where someone from Lambton College was like, "Can you come in next week?" So we're already, so we technically, I think we're over our 12 already, which is absolutely incredible. Like, we've done some local media around it, but I would say that it hasn't even really gotten out there yet. So really excited to see this program develop and getting to that community level. And then when they walk away from the presentation, we're giving them, you know, information that they can actually keep with them, so that way they can go back to, so things about duty to report. Every adult has a duty to report. Doesn't matter if you're a teacher or not, or a health professional or not. You have a duty to report if you suspect abuse. We also have come up with red flags that people, what to look for. Not necessarily that abuse is happening because you see it, but at least you have that if your gut feeling is, you know, you can go through the list. And then also resources that they can reach out to, and also what can they do right now. So we know that it's amazing the level of advocacy that we've done at the very high level, at the government level, but we know that it's not trickling down yet to those grassroots. So it's giving organizations concrete things like, what could I do right now? Like, as simple as, if it's not a, like, we know that like in boxing, certain sports, you have to weigh them. I think that needs to be done in a certain way. But like gymnastics, you don't need the scales. Remove them. Open practices, like to parents. So giving them concrete things that they could do right now to try to better protect children. And then through the Keep Me Safe program, we also, and thank you to Jumpstart, we were actually able to have our Keep Me Safe campaign video done professionally. So there was a local business called Paradox Images, and they came in and redid the video. I think you both have seen it. It's just, it's so incredible. And it just, oh, it's so good. So we're really excited that that was done as well. So it's amazing at the community level who wants to get involved and how to help. So excited about this program and so proud of the work that we have done for the program, and can't wait to see what happens with it.
You guys are incredible human beings. It makes me think of Laura and I. We met Joan Ryan, who wrote the book Little Girls with Pretty Boxes, when we first started the podcast, and she made this comment to us where it was like, do they know they're messing with elite gymnasts? The training you guys have gone to, the work ethic, the perseverance, the determination, all these tools that your coaches actually implemented in your lives are the things that are taking these predators down. So
Yeah.
rock stars and incredible human beings. And thank you so much for the work you guys are doing. Canada is so lucky to have you, and those athletes that are coming to you are so lucky to have you guys. It is not by accident that you guys are in the roles that you are in. And so I think it's just very interesting on how those little girls, you guys are saving those little girls too. Like the little Amelia, the little Melanie, the little Abby. There's so much more to your story than just that. We're far more complex than that one incident, and you guys are doing incredible work.
And on a selfish level, when we met and we were able to share stories with each other for the first time, it got to heal little Joy and little Laura too.
Yeah.
So I think us just getting to share stories with each other and knowing that it's safe and it's for real, because I think something that is sticking out in this story is that Mel and Abby, you were talking about, like, we just assumed things got better. Like, what made us, I was the same way. What made us think that things got better? And that it makes me think of many years ago, we would have a holiday party and we would do these skits. Group one, the elites, we did a skit of our coach at that time and basically yelling at us and laughing about it, getting kicked out, getting called all kinds of names. One of the gymnasts, she got our coach to actually, she got like to borrow his jacket and his necklace even. I couldn't believe he did this. I don't remember that he even knew what we were doing, but we basically made fun of him and the entire gym laughed. We laughed at that and how we can like joke about getting kicked out and being called all kinds of crazy names or being withheld water and withheld food, and we laugh. Like, we were trained to think that we're the problem, but we weren't the problem. We were never the problem. And so I just appreciate this connection, and I appreciate every time all of us in our generation can get together and know and sit with the fact that it's okay. It's okay to share stories, and it's okay that we feel this way. It's okay that we can look back at it and be angry about things or sad about things or depressed about things, anxious about things. We know that that impacts us today. And also, we're still here and we're still kicking ass, to your point, Joy, about like, we are elite gymnasts in this room right now. And there is nothing that was, we didn't want enough, we didn't try hard enough, we were lazy, all the words that came to us, there is nothing about that ever. So to all of us in the 80s and 90s gymnast cohort generation, we love you and we are here with you, and we're standing in solidarity together. It has been an absolute honor to share this space with you all and to call each other family. We love you very much.
We love you too. And thank you for doing what you're doing. And like Joy said, it's not a coincidence that you guys are in this role. And we feel very blessed to know you and to be able to connect with you and keep trying to change the sport world for the better with you guys.
I also love that you're giving a platform to people to share their stories in such a safe place, because it's something that I don't think many realize just how much it's needed and how freeing and empowering it can be to share your voice when you're ready. And it's like taking back so much power that was taken away from us when we were so little. So I love what you guys are doing.
And it's a talent to create that safe space for people to share and to make it a healing thing as opposed to a re-traumatizing thing. So thank you for doing that. That's not easy to do, and it's not always easy to hold that space for people, and that takes a toll in and of itself as well. So really, really thank you for that.
Well, with every episode, we end with a discuss question, but we're doing it a little bit differently with you guys because Melanie, you wrote to us and you wanted to answer some of the questions we asked each other on our first episode of Hahnacity. So we have some of those questions, but we also added a little extra flair for you ladies. So would you guys like to play discuss with us?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Very first question. Who was your favorite gymnast?
I'll go because I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Mine was Lilia Podkopaeva.
Such a good one.
Yeah.
She was beautiful.
So she is. So mine was, I have a couple. So it's like Tatiana Gutsu, Daniela Silvas, and then a little bit older when I was coming to close to Olympic trials was Lilia Podkopaeva.
Mine was Dominique Mosciano. Yeah.
Mine, you guys know, was Laura. Laura's my favorite gymnast. But I also love Daniela Silvas. I had her poster right above my bed.
My mind just went completely blank. Actually, I don't think I have a favorite gymnast. I liked little bits of different people's stuff. And it was often actually around style. Like Daniela Silvas is so, the way that she, like her arms out to her fingers, she had this like sort of alignment way of doing stuff. But like, Phoebe Mills had like a cool style as well. And like Shelley Stack had like a really powerful look to her, even though she's being so little, and I was very little too. But I liked little pieces from different people.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so this is a new one. Favorite leotard. So Melanie, you got to think on this one.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so I have one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
Okay. So I went to a competition in France and it was actually given to me and I loved it. It was all red, but it had like a sweetheart neckline and then it had mesh with rhinestones on the arm. And I loved it so much that as I grew, then I got another one made and then I got another one made my last couple years but in black instead of red. So that was my favorite. And I still have them.
Oh,
I don't know what to do with them.
you gotta take a
Please,
picture and then we'll post it on
please.
Hahnacity. Yeah.
Funny.
I think mine was at my first gym. We had our competition suits, and they were like, this is very 90s, but they were like a crushed velvet, like a maroon crushed velvet.
Yeah.
And it had like a little keyhole in the front. And I was like, 9, and I thought they were just like the most elegant thing I've ever worn. So I think I probably still have mine too. I think my parents probably have it in their basement somewhere. So I'll have to find it too.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay, so mine wasn't actually a competition suit. It was a training suit and it had a tiger on it. And so we weren't really allowed to wear suits that had like images and stuff, but I think I was with my coach when I bought it and it was like okayed by him and it had a tiger and I just felt like such a badass when I was wearing it. So I'd have to say that probably the tiger suit was my favorite.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Awesome. The first time I got a team leotard at my very first gym, it came in a plastic bag, and I don't know if you remember that part in Nadia where she gets her first leotard and she goes, she opens it up, she goes, "Isn't it beautiful?" And she's showing her dad, and I got to recreate that with my dad.
Oh,
I remember taking it home being like, Dad, I got my first like team leotard, performance leotard, and I picked up, I said, "Isn't it beautiful?" And I had a moment where I was like, I'm being like Nadia right now.
oh, that's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it.
That's really sweet. I got a leotard. Actually, Laura, you and Natalie bought it for me for my 10th birthday. And Natalie goes, Brandy Johnson's mom made this leotard. And I was like the Brandy Johnson. And so that was my favorite leotard. And I love that leotard. What was the skill that took you the longest to get?
Oh, I know this one for me. My worst events were floor and vault. So I would say a double back on floor. It was just, I didn't have the power to do it. And it wasn't until we moved to Burlington, and I was 12 at the time, and they had a tumble track. And that's how I was able to learn it that way and get the feeling for it, and then finally put it on the floor. But yeah, I remember everybody else my age at the time was already doing double backs and double pikes on floor. And so eventually I got there, but it took me a while.
I would say probably I did a Rolfova on the beam. You know what that is? Not sure. Okay. So, see, everyone has it was like a full twisting swing down.
Oh,
It's like a full twist, but then like a fish flop. I don't know what you guys call them. I was trying to think of
swing down.
Yeah, there you go. So I started learning it probably about 10, and then I think I competed it for the first time by like age 11 and a half, 12. So it took me about 2 years, but it's the one skill I never fell on. Thank God too.
Incidentally, that's exactly how I broke my hand, Abby, was training a full twisting swing down. Yeah, shattered my hand. But I think honestly, like going way back, I think the hardest skill and the one that took me the longest was a back walkover on beam. I was never a flexible gymnast. And so anything bendy like that was already really tough, but the fear really kicked in at that point. And like the idea of doing a back walkover, going backwards on a beam above the floor was just absolutely petrifying. So I just remember standing, on the beam, trying to psych myself up to do it and just like crying and shaking because it was just so terrifying. But that was one of the early times that I realized gymnastics was scary sometimes.
Were any more afraid of a back walkover than a back handspring? Because I was. Like, give me a back handspring any day.
100%.
Back walkover on the beam.
Going slow.
Yeah, there's something about like going slow, I think, maybe. in my head anyway.
For real, y'all. The gymnastics is real. We are afraid of things and we do it anyway.
Mhm.
We do it anyway. My skill that was most difficult was in the 92 compulsory bar routine. There was like a back hip circle thing release move where then you had to turn and grab
The heck, yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And as it turned out, now I look back at it and that really traumatic arm break that I talk about in season 1, yeah, I didn't have actually full mobility of my arm at that point, but I struggled with the release part of it. Also, I was very small, so it was hard to determine how far the bar should be from me. So I was constantly struggling with that. But as it turned out, I wonder if like some of my lack of mobility contributed to that. But I always thought that I was this like immense failure because I could not figure out how to do the hecht and turn where to grab both hands on the high bar. I always got this deduction because I was like one hand at a time. But yeah, I never got it to a place where I was like fully confident with it to date. But
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that move since 1992. Yeah, the bars are so far now. There's no way.
yeah.
I go back like you, Amelia. The skill that took me forever to get was a kip. And I think a lot of it had to do with I started late and my body didn't have the technique. We skipped a lot of things out of that and it just took me forever to get a kip. And I just remember all my teammates got it and I was the last one to get it. But when I got the skill, the immense pride I had that I was like, oh my God, this took me forever to get. All right, the final question. When did you know you were good?
I never knew I was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it was probably long after gym. And it probably more came from my husband when I met him. It was like him and his family learning about what I had done. And I only have a couple videos of what I done. I'll say outside world. That's when I was like, oh, maybe, yeah, I was a pretty good gymnast. Also, when we did the documentary, because I had to research some stuff about yourself, and I didn't realize that I was actually the first Canadian gymnast to do a couple things. So really, I was in my 30s when I really like, oh, okay, yeah, I was pretty good because I was always told that I wasn't. So,
Can you name a skill that you were the first Canadian gymnast?
One of the first.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Rofova, and then I was the first Canadian to consistently compete the Yurchenko 1.5.
On the old school vault, by the way, folks, not the
Yes.
tongue vault, the old school
Yes,
vault.
the old school
Yeah.
scary vault.
Scary
Old school
vault.
scary vault. Yeah.
Yeah.
You miss your hand, you're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. You're amazing.
The older I got, the less I believed I was good. But I do remember when I was 9 was when I first competed and ended up winning provincials. And I won every qualifier and then ended up winning provincials. And I thought, okay, like then it was almost like, okay, I'm like, you don't know because when you're in your gym, you're just kind of with your own teammates. And then when you go out and actually you compare yourself to others, and yeah, I think that's when I realized that I was good, but also I was a way fiercer competitor when I was younger compared the older I got, I don't know, I got soft or something, but one time at a qualifier, and this is when I was 9, so I mean the caliber of gymnastics was like, think of a 9-year-old, but we were warming up for beam and the girl I was competing against, not from my club, she said, if I win this meet, my mom said she'll buy me a bunny. And in my head, I was like, well, I guess you're not getting that bunny. And I was just like, whoa, where did that, like, when I think of that now, I'm just like, who was that person? And I don't know what happened, but I think you need to have that fire inside to be a fierce competitor. I had it. And then somewhere along the way, I lost it. I think when I was 9, that's when I knew I was good.
I think I only had like flashes of feeling like I was good. I don't think it ever really stuck. I remember I won this competition at the end of the season at my first gym and like I cleaned up. It was just, all around and every event. And it was after that point that my coaches at that gym said, you actually need to go to a more elite gym. And so like in that context, I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of good. But Laura, I think it was kind of like you where I was a big fish in a little pond. And so then once I went to that new gym, it was like, oh no, maybe I'm not that good, right? I was humbled pretty quickly because all of these other gymnasts have been training in this more elite environment for so long that I had a lot of work that I needed to do. When I went to nationals and I came second on bars and I was really proud of that initially, but then I got back to the gym and that whole situation had been a really traumatic event in general. But so I was proud that I had actually even had that result because things had gone so badly with my coach during that time. I trained with his daughter, and she very casually one day said, well, my dad wants you to know that second is the first loser. And I was like, right, okay, so not good, right? So even that accomplishment that I had thought was such a big deal was immediately quashed. So it took, I think it was the same kind of time frame as Abby when we were doing the documentary, and I was going back through my whole career and looking at footage, and I was like, oh, right. Like, not only did I come second on bars at nationals, I was like seventh on beam, and that was my first nationals. And like, those are big deals. And like, you're in the top 10 in the country on anything, that's actually a pretty big deal. So it took until now that I was reflecting as an adult on something that was really quite an accomplishment and something to be proud of. So now I know I'm good, or was good. I wouldn't say now.
Still good. Still good.
Yeah.
You called it, Amelia. I don't, and I'm the same as you, Abby. I didn't think anything about myself as being good until I went to Texas and just realized, like, oh, this is nice to be around people who can do what I could do. And that was more like fun. I had so much fun in the beginning until it stopped being fun. And then then it was just like, I'm not that good. And that continued same until much later. And often Joy would have to remind me in season 1, there's lots of tears during this time where it's just that facing what we were as little girls, it feels like a completely different person. I cannot recognize that person as actually being me, but we know that those little beings are us, and that she's very much taken care of on my insides now, so to speak. But I will say that I always knew when I did something good because I had fun in it. I really enjoyed mastering things. Like, that brought me such joy. Like my mind is time traveled to a beam right now where I would do things over and over again. And if I think about all the competitions, like, I actually don't remember a lot of them except the not so great parts, but like, I don't actually remember winning nationals. I don't remember doing well in any of those places, but I remember actually practices and spaces where I would get a routine down the way that I liked it to be and having great joy. That's a process that I still have to date when I do anything at this point.
Yeah, I think the perspective of being adults definitely help claiming our greatness, which is even hard to say out loud in a lot of spaces. But I think that we're still sort of in this training of result base, and it's like, if I won one meet, it didn't matter. I had to win 10 meets, or I had to be the best. You're constantly thinking that you have to reach more and more. And Amelia, it's so interesting when you said second place is the first loser, because I remember I had a shirt that said that.
Yeah.
That it was like sort of the culture of competitive sports. Like, you had to win to be seen as valuable. I always tell Laura, she was the kid that was the one to beat when she would walk in competitions. I knew that at a young age, watching her meets when I was a little girl. I was never that kid. I wasn't the kid that walked in and everybody thought I was the biggest competition. I was the kid that could keep up with the biggest competition. So I think it was really hard for me to claim that I was good. And so it's crazy, because if you think of like the probability of athletes making it to an elite level, I sit down with my athletes now who are level 3 gymnasts, and it's like, you can do a round off back handspring. Name human beings that can do that skill. It's pretty extraordinary, and I think it's really interesting that our sport is just so unique. It's so unique because me and Laura always talk about the hours that we put into our sport. It's very unique in terms of other sports. And even talking to kids that I train that are 9 years old, putting 16 hours of their life into the gym and spending more time with me than probably their family members, because they have school and they have homework and they're balancing so much. And it's this unique thing about their peers in other sports are putting in 3 hours at most. And I always say, like, gymnasts are actually doing multiple sports, because it's not just one event that you're doing. If you're a boy gymnast, you're doing way more, and it's like you're perfecting so many different things, which requires a little bit more time. But then there's this element of like, man, like, we're having little kids put in 16 hours. It's a commitment, and so I think for me, trying to own what extraordinary is, and what does that mean for each individual? It's a new definition. And I think it's one of those things that I didn't know as a young kid. And I tell my athletes, a lot of people can kick a soccer ball, but not a lot of athletes can flip their feet over their head and stand up. So I say that we're all pretty amazing being gymnasts, because gymnasts are kick-ass. They really are.
Agreed.
So true. Yeah.
Thank you for all that you do, not just for Canada, but you inspire everybody around the world with your heart and your minds and your thoughtfulness to everybody. So just thank you. We have a lot to emulate in you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you both so much. This has been such a lovely connection to make through all of the years of trauma, for it to come to fruition, to create a community like this. It's beautiful. So grateful for both of you.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Share and follow us on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. Help us out and leave a 5-star review. Thanks.